Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he still has the energy and determination to continue fighting Russia nearly 4 years after Moscow launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. In recent remarks, Zelensky stated that Russia has not broken Ukraine's spirit and that the country remains committed to defending its sovereignty and territorial integrity. His comments come at a time when the war continues to reshape regional security, strain global alliances, and impact economic stability worldwide. Speaking about the ongoing conflict, Zelensky emphasized resilience. He said Ukraine's people, armed forces, and institutions continue to function despite constant military pressure. According to him, the country remains focused on both military defense and long-term national stability. The war began in February 2022 when Russian forces launched a large-scale invasion across multiple fronts. Since then, fighting has continued across eastern and southern Ukraine, with intense battles reported in key regions. Missile and drone strikes have also targeted infrastructure, including energy facilities, transportation networks, and urban centers. Zelensky's latest comments appear aimed at reassuring both domestic and international audiences. Domestically, morale has been a critical factor in sustaining resistance. Internationally, Ukraine remains heavily dependent on military, financial, and humanitarian assistance from Western allies. In recent months, Russia has intensified drone and missile attacks, particularly targeting Ukraine's energy infrastructure. Ukrainian officials say air defense systems have intercepted many of these attacks, though damage has still been reported in several regions. Power outages and repair efforts continue to affect daily life in parts of the country. At the same time, Ukraine's armed forces continue defensive operations along active front lines. Military analysts note that the conflict has increasingly become a war of attrition, with both sides facing resource challenges and manpower strain. Zelensky has repeatedly called for sustained international support. He argues that consistent military aid, including air defense systems and ammunition, remains essential to counter ongoing Russian offensives. Several Western nations have pledged continued assistance, though political debates in some countries have influenced the timing and scale of support packages. Diplomatic efforts have been ongoing, though no comprehensive peace agreement has been reached. Talks about potential ceasefire frameworks have surfaced periodically, but significant differences remain between Kyiv and Moscow, particularly regarding territorial control and security guarantees. Zelensky has maintained that any lasting peace must respect Ukraine's sovereignty. Russia, meanwhile, continues to assert its claims over certain occupied territories. These opposing positions have complicated negotiations and limited immediate diplomatic breakthroughs. Despite battlefield challenges, Zelensky has framed Ukraine's resistance as not only a military effort, but also a broader struggle for national survival and democratic principles. He frequently emphasizes unity and endurance, describing the war as a test of Ukraine's resilience. The human cost of the conflict remains significant. Civilian casualties have been reported throughout the war, and millions of Ukrainians have been displaced either internally or abroad. Reconstruction needs are expected to be substantial, with international organizations estimating long-term rebuilding costs in the hundreds of billions of dollars. Global economic effects have also been notable. The war has disrupted grain exports, energy markets, and supply chains. European countries in particular have adjusted energy strategies to reduce dependence on Russian resources. Meanwhile, Russia continues its military campaign and maintains that its objectives remain unchanged. The Kremlin has characterized the conflict as necessary for its national security interests. Western governments reject that framing and continue to support Ukraine's defense. As the war approaches another year, questions remain about its trajectory. Military experts suggest that prolonged conflict could further strain both sides. However, neither leadership has signaled an immediate shift in core objectives. Zelensky's statement that he still has the energy to fight appears intended as a clear message: Ukraine does not plan to concede under pressure. His leadership has centered on perseverance, mobilization, and sustained international cooperation. Observers note that public communication has been a strategic element of Ukraine's approach. Regular addresses, international speeches, and diplomatic outreach have aimed to maintain global awareness and engagement. While uncertainty remains over how and when the conflict might end, the current reality is that fighting continues, diplomatic channels remain limited, and humanitarian needs persist. For now, Zelensky's message underscores continuity rather than change. Ukraine remains committed to resisting Russian forces, seeking international backing, and pursuing its vision of sovereignty. As developments continue on the battlefield and in diplomatic arenas, the situation remains fluid. Governments, analysts, and citizens worldwide are closely watching for any signs of escalation, stabilization, or renewed negotiation. The war in Ukraine remains one of the most significant geopolitical conflicts of the decade, and according to President Zelensky, Ukraine's determination remains intact. For continued updates on global affairs and international security, stay connected with Amerix News.